All right, so we're going to be doing a Season 8 tier list for the JP side of Black Clover Mobile up to basically Season 8 now, I think, which is kind of insane that we're this far in. So for this, I'm using Pridewin. I don't use it all the time, but I'm going to use it this time. I updated it with Antelar a couple days ago, I think yesterday actually, just telling him what I think we should change, and basically it's been changed accordingly. So obviously this could be used as a database site, so you could also check out the new ceremony units if you want to check them out too, and basically every other upcoming unit in the game with the stats, and you can compare, and then also all the skill pages. So I do recommend checking out Pridewin, but we're going to be doing the PvP and the PvE side of the JP version, and for this, I'm going to basically be comparing a unit to another one, seeing how the meta is looking, and just giving my own personal opinions while in top 500 PvP, seeing what teams work and what teams don't. And I mean, if you want more details, either just check out the showcases or ask down below, and I will definitely be sure to answer you. So I made a tier list for Season 7, but I think there was a lot of units, at least 7 or 8, that I got basically off the, just not right. So I think that it's going to be important for me to kind of fix that error in this tier list, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to unlist the other tier list because, I mean, it just had a bit too much wrong information. So we're going to see, and basically, yeah, let's just hop into it. We'll go down the list. Okay, so we'll start with PvP though. Now in S Plus, there's not that many changes, at least compared to Season 7. Now, of course, Pridewin had a big overhaul, I'd say, in terms of the JP side, just looking at it, what it was before, but let's just look at it. So starting with red, we got Black Asta, and he is alone, right, which you could kind of infer what that means, but just to start off, Black Asta is just someone who kind of started off a bit with bleak chances of being good, but I think over time just gained a lot of value as some teams were being formed. I think for the first couple of days, people weren't sure how to use it, but then he basically solidified himself to be able to be used in any team comp just for the sole reason of his skill too. So the main reason is that obviously he has two versions, right? He has with anti-magic and without anti-magic. Now, for the most part of the game, he's going to be without anti-magic, and without, he's getting the increased defense level 3. Level 3 defense increase is the highest defense increase in the game. Now, besides just that, he also gives total defense if he has a skill page, and total defense counts all damage as blocked, and block damage reduces damage by up to 30%. But since you're blocking it, you cannot be crit either. So it does add that extra little tinge of extra importance, right, to getting the skill page for total defense, being able to reduce damage besides damage reduction and then increasing defense, just making this insane on any team. Now, besides just that, you could also just get him under the 40% threshold, and he just taunts all enemies, right, which I think is just quite strong. But he also is just a DPS that if everyone else dies, then he's able to just go crazy. So he is very good, being able to use him in a conservative manner, which is why he's in S plus and probably top 3, maybe even top 1, bro. You could argue that fact, right? You could easily argue the fact. He works very well on pretty much any team comp, and I think it's just very strong. If it wasn't for his skill 2, he would be severely worse. Now, besides just the taunt, at max dupe, he gets stun block for the whole team first turn, which is just an extremely strong thing to have. Now, Charlotte, I mean, there's not much need to kind of explain. She has 54% damage reduction, makes it that allies get their ultimates turns quicker, gives stun block, debuff block, gives barriers, and on a full green team gives barriers to the whole team, right? There's nothing really bad with her. She only has positives, and she is immensely strong, especially because you could stack damage reduction with pretty much every other damage reduction in the game, making her an oppressive force. Now, Julius obviously is just kind of insane, and he helped bring William back up, I would say, at least more recently, because of stats just being increased. So essentially, let me explain it this way. So we got Equipment Transcendence, and with Equipment Transcendence, most people just ran full DPS builds, which means their attacks are much higher. But since the only thing you're really transcending is the attack, you're not getting higher defenses, which means getting higher offenses means you're basically guaranteed to one-tap most people, since the defenses didn't go up, but the offense did in most cases. What many people didn't exactly run more defense builds just because they transcended their equipment. They just stick to the attack build. So turn 1, all you needed to do was use the combo, since William's at 126 speed, and then Julius kills anyone with his combo, because as we can see, his combo is actually very strong. having the damage of, what is it? I think 85% on a just combo, but then he gets 50% increased damage dealt if there's a buff. So to be fair, he's essentially just getting an insane amount of damage from that, and Julius does a lot of damage. So yeah, Julius and William kind of help each other stay in S+, but Julius obviously has a second life, reducing stamina, stunning, damage, everything. William, it's his speed and the damage reduction, and that counter is actually very useful just because of the fact that he's applying damage reduction plus giving someone a counter, and then he's able to speed people up, stun, so just overall very useful. Now, Noelle, why she's here, it's just her whole kit, essentially, is the way I guess you could see it. It's mainly her passives though. She gets 30% increased incapacitate on everyone, on all the enemies for the first turn. And what's very funny, I think, is when she is attacked, she removes continuous HP recovery, which is just kind of putting Charmy in the dirt. But the main thing is this. So at the start of the battle, inflicts a 40% reduced damage dealt debuff on attacker class enemies for 1 turn. This essentially confirms that if you are running her with other units such as William, Charlotte applying the damage reduction, that the enemy just has no chance of killing you, which I think is a just amazing thing because you're reducing the damage that the attackers on the enemy side deals by 40%, which is insanely strong. Now, besides just that, it's mainly also her skill page that could be run on, obviously, other debuffers, but could be run on her, like, primarily because it does buff her skill page too by putting the block HP recovery, but they're her skill 2, not skill page. Now, her other skills are strong, extending debuff duration, reducing magic attack, taunting too, and this is the main thing. She taunts there, which allows for this skill page to get in the points, where at max dupe, which most people do have on JP if you're in top 500, it's actually very simple to get because they just reran the banner. They've been shitting out skill page dupes, giving us 2 a month for free, right? I think now 3 technically in most cases. So basically, there is a 100% chance to inflict SP -1 on all enemies when you take damage, and she taunts for 2 turns, which is great. Reduces SP here, reduces SP here, removes buffs, lowers their damage here. So like, she's just too good, making it so that the enemies a lot of the times will not be able to use their ultimates or combos, reduce their damage, make them take more damage. And I think just everything she does just goes very well for the current meta of high damage reduction. And you need other ways to reduce their damage even further because damage is just getting so obscenely high, right? So this is it for S+. I think this is pretty fair, right? We're going to go into less detail as we kind of go along to lower ranks and also going into PVE. But it's going to be a pretty long video considering we're already almost 7 minutes in. Now, this is the S+ tier. And I think that a lot of these units are on the cusp of being to S+ or other way around to A. Okay, so you'll see a lot of these units, and they're mainly, these 2 top rows are the things that define most of the metas in the game. In green, you could see just pretty much the whole green meta, besides maybe Gold Lily and also Rill. I think that there are kind of some arguments to put them higher, but I wouldn't say so. Then in S, you could see the 2 different types of teams, either running the like William with Charlotte team and Noelle, or a full blue team here with Luck, or even Julius too. It works well that way. Then Lotus is just good all around, and I'm going to talk about some other stuff. And then the red team, you could just see the kind of burn team that's still lingering around, waiting for Mario, and then just the... By the way, a lot of people have been like pissed at how I've been saying Mario. I'm just like, how do you want me to say it? Like, do you want me to full name it Mario Leona? Or do you just want me to say Mario sometimes? I don't... Y'all let me know down below. But I'm getting a bit confused with how you guys want me to say her name. But you're going to see a couple of interesting things. Mainly 2 things. Noelle and Magna have been moved down. Yuno and Witch Queen have been moved up. Now, Magna, there's a pretty just kind of logical reason to this. Right now, Julius is in the meta. He goes quick and goes sometimes first turn with William. And Magna has no way to defend himself. That's it. He's able to stun block at max dupe. Is it max? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's at max dupe. But that's it. He has nothing to keep himself alive. No immortality. With immortality, he would have been easily S+. But no immo. He just has offense. And he needs a bit more defense, which he will get with Mario Leona. But we don't have her yet, so he is an S, right? The amount of times that I've been one-tapped by my, that my Magna has been one-tapped or has died very quickly before really getting value has been a lot, right? I've tried him a lot. My Magna's max duped. He has 4 dupes in his skill page. My Charmy is max duped, has 5 dupes in her skill page. I have the best burn team you could imagine. Okay, 70 KCC Magna, he dies. Okay, very simply. And it's not like a couple defense pieces will really help. Julius is just doing that much extra damage turn 1 or for further along into the game and always targeting Magna because he is the red DPS. So Magna is kind of a problem. Now, Noelle, main reason, if we look at it, there are a couple. Okay, first one, Asta has barrier block, okay? And if we don't count barrier block, he also has taunt, which makes it so that Noelle's skill 2 is useless, right? So she doesn't really have a use there, okay? Now, Asta is slower, yes, sure. But then you look at the other sides. Julius could either easily kill her before Noelle does anything, or Noelle just taunts Noelle. Halloween Noelle taunts Summer Noelle, and that's it, right? So in many of those cases, that's really it. But it's also just because of how, like, prominent a role barrier removal is at the moment, with Black Asta having his AoE once he has anti-magic, which is pretty early on, right? So the special barrier doesn't usually come into play anymore. And now Luck is another unit that I think will be definitely up there for attack teams, and he removes barriers just like that, making it, you probably saw if you check my 2-dupe Luck showcase, or the 0-dupe, I think both of them kind of showcases it, but the 2-dupe does do it much better, where Luck just kind of makes it kind of pointless. And then obviously there's still people like Magna who are lingering there to basically make it so Noelle. Sure, barrier is good, will keep some people alive, but you won't get use out of the counter, first of all. And second of all, there's a lot of ways to remove barriers. If we just look at it, right now, Noelle's combo removes barrier, Charmy's combo removes barrier, Magna's combo removes barrier. Is there any else? Well, Luck just removes barrier. And so does Asta. So, you know, there's a lot of like prominent DPSs that could very easily just wipe Noelle clean. I think red DPSs are in a bad spot because of the fact that most of them don't have a way to protect themselves. Charmy does, Immortality. These two don't. It's very easy to get killed early on. Julius has his second life if he does get killed. Luck has 70% damage reduction when there's a combo on him. So, not a combo, a counter. And then Fauna has the barriers on a full green team, I guess. But if not, she does have Immortality later on into the fight. But I think it's kind of what's keeping her in S and not putting her up to S+. Her not having that good survivability. So yeah, Noelle is still very good, just not as good, not good enough to be an S+. These S+ units are the top 5, I guess. But in reality, they're just like on a whole nother level themselves if we really look at it in this current meta. Now, looking at the other units, Funeral, very good on a full red team and helps Asta just kind of go before any other damage reductions placed or other pesky little debuffs. Now, Charmy is still there because her Pumpkin is still very strong. Not as useful in many situations, but she's still lingering around. She has Immortality, and she has her stunts that she gets when she attacks someone with a Pumpkin if she has her skill page, so she does have some value. Then Yuno and Witch Queen are the two new additions, which I would say are very good additions. Now, Witch Queen is there. I mean, she could be A, I guess, but B makes sense to me in PvE. I didn't really touch PvE too much, but there's a reason, right? It's not really as useful, and like, I mean, it's kind of hard to rank people in PvE, but anyway, that's like, we'll talk about that a bit later, I guess. So, Witch Queen. Why she's good now, obviously, is just that, well, Asta's there, so that's great. And Witch Queen is needed in a lot of these teams, mainly the full red team. And Witch Queen with dupes is actually very self-sustaining. It's just, I don't like her personally still, but she's, because like, forcing Asta to be good with Witch Queen in most cases, not all cases, because you could use him without her, but to be a DPS, being able to do damage guaranteed, you need to use Witch Queen, who lowers Asta's HP to the anti-magic threshold, obviously allowing him to do his big boy damage. So, there's that. Witch Queen's very good. Now, moving on to Yuno. I'm not saying Witch Queen on herself is not very good, but with Asta, yeah. So, Yuno, the main reason, I actually really do like Yuno, now, at least, is this ult. So, the ult, and also his passive. So, these two things together play very nicely. They were preparing months into the future for this, because when he came out, he was not good. There was not many red units. He came out after Halloween, Noelle, and Charmy, so in Season 5, and there's not really a place for him in the meta. Okay, there was not. But now, things have changed, even reducing, or even stopping someone for a bit, and also just making it so that they don't have much kind of leniency into what they could do, is very strong. So what he does is apply total silence for 2 turns. So for 2 turns, you are making it that an enemy cannot use their skill 2 or ultimate, but he also taunts for 1 turn, which could be used to your advantage, and then also reduces their mobility by, I think, what, 32% at max dupe. And there are ways you could use them, but one of the main ways that I think works very well on obviously that team is using this, where basically every time he's hit, obviously being taunted, is going to be reducing all SP by 1, which I think is just very strong. But it's mainly this total silence. And what's good is that if all allies are red, which you want to build a full red team either way to give Asta the Immortality with Witch Queen, right? You're going to be getting the 20% mobility buff, which is going to get him, in 99% of cases, to go first against the enemies. If you're on a full red team, which already is fine because of the fact that if we check here, she gives immortality or Crimson Blood, which is immortality, if the HP falls under 30%. And why this is honestly a really good buff is because Witch Queen puts the person to the defender to 30%. So she's putting Asta to 30%, which means even if he's in that 30% range, right, he's going to have for one turn before he attacks. He's going to be able to not die because he's going to get the immortality. Now, once he attacks, why it's fine to have it removed is because he gets the lifesteal, which is for sure going to put him back up to 100% HP. So before Asta attacks and he's put to 30%, he has immortality. After he attacks, he's put back up to 100% because of the lifesteal. So that's why I just wanted to mention full red team with Yuno, Witch Queen, Asta, and then a fourth unit being either Funeral, Charmy, or Charlotte work very well. Or Magna. Or Noelle, actually. Like, it's any unit, but I would say Yuno, Asta, and Witch Queen is like the three main units you would want to use on the full red team. And Yuno is very good, right? Very good. Now, moving on to green. Voltos, I mean, has lost a bit of his value. He could honestly, like, I could see you argue for S rank, I think. But he's still very strong, gives magic attack buff. Main thing is by far the stamina increase though, but I feel like with time this will slowly lose its value. But as of right now, it's still very good. And yeah, I mean, there's that. Now, Rhodas, I think next patch is kind of over. Depending on Mario Leona, she gives stun block to the whole team with the Mana Zone, so Rhodas kind of loses his value for stun block after turn 1 like Fauna and Asta give. So sadly there's that, but he still has his barrier, defense, increased damage, resistance, good damage, and also could taunt when he's attacked sometimes, so still very good. Mimosa has a res and good healing. There's not really much to say. She always is going to get full heals, especially with the magic attack buff, to where now you could run her even more defensively because you could run less magic attack pieces to get the most amount of healing while also being able to tank more, since you get more, like there's obviously a certain like peak that you need before it becomes too much healing, right? So then obviously that excess could be converted into you running defense pieces, right? Because with Transcendence, you're increasing the magic attack of every piece from around 500 to 1,000, which is going to inevitably increase by like 3k per piece because of other buffs and everything. Now, Fauna is the only DPS that's really like holding down the green team, and she is giving stun block when the whole team is red. Green, not red. Well, I was thinking of the red team. When the whole team is green. So combining that with Charlotte, who gives the barrier, it's very strong, but still not enough because of the fact that Asta is in the meta now. The whole goal of this team is to play slow and play with the Summer Vanessa. But even at that, I think it's the weakest out of the three teams, which is why none of the crucial units of the blue team are in S+, where for red, there's obviously Asta, and for blue, there's Julius, Noelle, and William, right? Where the green team has Charlotte, sure, but Charlotte's main use is on every other team but the green team. I feel like I've tested the three main teams out, and the one that's the weakest has been the green team. While having its uses, it is not every time that you will be able to kind of like execute it, where with the red and blue team, for the most part, it is quite flawless, I would say. Now, moving on to the blue units, I think Charlotte got a bit of value with luck. They help each other, giving the things that they need. And with her skill page, she is very strong, giving the all attack plus total defense, which I'm not going to go more to total defense since I went over that in the Black Asta part. Charmy, I think, is starting to lose her value because she's a bit too slow, but she's still very good. I think that I would need to test her out a bit more in this meta, but she's not completely worthless. It's just now Noelle especially being there, she removes the continuous heals. And Noelle is very prominent in this meta, so I would say that Charmy does lose a lot of her healing value because of the fact that Noelle could take off those healings from the enemies. Yeah. Now, Lotus, his main use now, honestly, is turn 1, you just use this combo. You have a chance to reduce the mobility by 20%, and then your team is kind of screwed if they actually do land this. And it's a very strong too. So there is that. Obviously, I have more than like I'm pretty sure, unless I'm like wrong, it's like separate chances, so it's a 60% chance once, twice, 3 times, and 4 times. It's not like 60% once. It's like 60. You have a 60% chance to hit this on every single person individually, so it's very strong. And then after that, obviously, once you hit this, you have a much better chance of getting the speed debuff plus also the mobility debuff here. So Lotus still keeps his spot even so far into the meta. And then obviously Mars still has his debuff block, which is very strong, alongside being able to tank and a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, this is basically S+, or the S and S+. Luck, obviously, I talked about him a bit, but basically his barrier removals are very strong. I would recommend you check out the 2-dupe showcase. All you need is 2 dupes on him, nothing else really, and he is just incredibly strong. So yeah. Basically, my reasoning for all of S+ and S in 20 minutes. Jesus Christ, I was talking a lot. Now, we could kind of start scrolling down and getting more into it. So A, these are the units that have very niche uses, but still have some uses. I wouldn't say uses all the time, not at all. But I would say though, if anything, I would probably lower Fauna and Ghost, and probably Licked. I think those are three units that no, not Ghost. Sorry, Fauna, Kiato, and Licked are the three units I would lower. Like they're on the cusp of being at B. That they're really struggling to stay in A rank, in my opinion. Which, I mean, makes enough sense for those three, I'd say, because Licked only has his immortality. But looking at A, right, you got Asta who gets multiple turns. It's his only gimmick, right? He's very quick at the bare minimum, but he won't usually kill in many instances. I think there's some instances where he could be good, but not many. He does have barrier removal on his combo, so at least there's that. Now Charlotte, I mean, she still is pretty good and probably could be an S. Like on the full red team, she works very well, so that's her main thing, where she applies the marks, which allows the DPS, if they kill one person, to get multiple extra turns if they already have an extra turn, or just to get an extra turn if they kill someone. It's very strong. Fuego obviously has his AoE barrier removal, but as of right now, I think it's more strong, focusing more on not just barrier removal, but also many other things like some of the higher units do. Magna just having truly good DPS, Asta being OP, and then obviously the rest just doing more damage than anything else. But Fuego barrier removal is not that bad. It's just not as needed, I think. I think that especially now with Charlotte being the main barrier applier, there's no need for AoE barrier removal when it's more so just single target barrier removal that is needed. So yeah, at the moment this is more of a global unit that will be good, because on global, Noel's still in the meta. Fuego is going to be able to just be bye-bye barrier, and then that's it, right? Now Sally is still able to do good stuff because she's just able to apply a bunch of ridiculous amount of buffs that are just going to be able to help the DPSs kind of thrive. Now Green is a bit rough. I think we're going to have to kind of talk especially about Yami and my current thoughts about Yami. I've showed him in many different ways, and it was kind of funny because I made the video, I mean I posted it this morning about stunning with Yami, right? Trying to stun with Yami using a Witch Queen stun team, and I showed it didn't work. And I mean, people were saying like, just use this team, or like do it like this. Where I'm like, I've already showcased that in my previous video where it didn't work. So it's like they kind of shafted Yami, but I think that in the future he could kind of gain value. I think if like certain things are met, better green units, I think Yami could definitely thrive. It's just that he doesn't have enough survivability because of how they structured him. And they kind of made it so that you have to play more conservatively, which was kind of an unfortunate thing for him, because you want to keep him at 8 SP to be able to get the barrier every turn, but then the barrier just isn't strong enough, right? Which is the very unfortunate part. But besides just that, even like when you get more dupes at what's it called, at 5 dupes, he gets damage reduction if he stays at 5 at 8 SP. But the thing is, you don't even want to use the alt, because of the fact that you need 4 stacks of the extra attack here for this to start being good, because before it, the alt damage is pathetic, right? And then all it really gives is it would be you getting an extra barrier of 100% attack, which 100% attack really isn't much. And his skill 2 sure is nice, the counter attack, but the thing is, you won't be seeing many blue teams on defense, I would say. So that's the main problem. And then the thing is, you would stun if there's a bleed, but you need to go out of your way to get the bleeds on him and use a Witch Queen team. But the thing is with using a Witch Queen team is that using Witch Queen means you have to use Asta, because Witch Queen alone is not really good. And you forcing yourself to use Witch Queen solely for the bleed just doesn't end up working out in this case. So you're going to end up using a wishy-washy Black Asta team that doesn't allow Black Asta to thrive, because he doesn't have immortality to stay alive after Witch Queen ults. And then he won't really be getting his stuns most of the time. Right, that's the thing. And then after the stun, it's like, okay, it won't really work out too well. But his skill 1 is pretty good, right? I think it is nice, but it's just, they should have realized that he needed more for him to be good. Like, they want you to spam his skill 1, but if you don't spam his skill 1, and if you don't spam his skill 1, then it just won't work out for you. But then you want to use the skill 2 for the stun, but you won't get it most of the times, especially now that there's a lot of stun block units turn 1. So you gotta wait to go second, but Yami is not a unit that wants to go second because of the fact that he gets his barrier once it's his turn. So there's a lot of things that really should have been thought of, but maybe in the future he will be better. Once we get bleed units that are actually good in green teams, he will be good, right? If we look at it right now, there's not a single green unit that really bleeds AoE, because you want it to be an AoE bleed since Yami gets the AoE. There's not. There's this single target, there's Jack single target, that's it. So we need more bleed units. I'm hoping that the next Vanessa that comes out has it, but Yami was kind of shafted overall. But he's not like completely bad. There's still cases where he's good. His damage on his skill 1 is good, but his ult damage is pathetic until you get the 4 stacks. But then when you get the 4 stacks, what kind of sucks is that you use the ult and then the stacks reset. And then you have to start all over again. So why not just use the skill 1 at max potential instead of having one turn where you might get the kill instead of using the skill 1 where with the skill page you're already doing a lot of damage. So it's just kind of like, it's too complicated for a unit that doesn't get enough out of it being complicated, right? Now, Guildity actually has a lot of use. I would say personally, I really like him. He gets the protection for 1 turn. If this was 2 turns, this guy would have actually been so crazy. Basically, what this means is you can't target the person you're selecting for this for that turn when they have protection up. And he also gives him the all-attack buff when you do that with the skill page. Now, on his ult, he gives the Fortify, which is pretty good when you put it with Charlotte. And obviously, they're both green. So there is that. Then besides that, right, you look at it, he gets invulnerability for 3 turns now. 3 turns means counting every ally and every enemy. So let's say you're using this and then 3 turns after it's all allies. Then those 3 turns, each individual turn counts as 1 turn to take off of the invulnerability. But if you manage to plan it well and you use this ult as enemies are about to attack right after, then you could get 3 turns where those enemies are going to be attacking and doing no damage to the person with the lowest HP for 3 turns, which is pretty decent. The only thing about it is that it's an attack skill, which might go into counters, which I don't always like. But you get the damage reduction, which is going to be able to stack with Charlotte's. And then you get invulnerability, which comes into play sometimes. He has very good speed too. 115 is very high, so I'd say I do like him a lot. His barrier could be a decent bit. If we're looking at it, it's about 28%, and he could be around 120, 130k HP. So that's about, if we're really thinking about it, like a 30, 35, 40k barrier with protection. So at least the person who gets the barrier is going to have protection to get with that, which I think is pretty decent. So yeah, he is pretty good. I mean, nothing to really go crazy over, but he's pretty good. Now, Jack, it's mainly just his guaranteed stun that still keeps him there. And him, whenever he's attacked, gets 20% stamina. 20. So basically, if he's attacked, then he's going to be able to go next, which is decent. Langris has pretty good, basically, rotations of being able to just spam his ult. And with spamming ult, you're also able to basically heal yourself up every time you use your ult at max dupes. And then he also has good speed at max dupe. And then he also has immortality to keep him alive. Now, Licht, I'd say, should go down. So I'm not really going to talk about him much. But basically, he just has damage, but it's not really worth it. I would put him down to B. I'm going to probably revise that part. And Vanessa, it's mainly just being on a full green team. If she is quicker than the Fauna, then she's able to give Fauna protection for 2 turns if she's quicker. So you really have to play around it. But if she does give her the protection, then it will play out to your favor. Because usually you'll be fighting a lot of red teams and Yuno's going to be on it. And Yuno won't be able to target Fauna because obviously you can't target someone single target who has protection. So that's the thing where Vanessa kind of comes into play. Now for blue, I would say Fauna kind of should go down because she's only damaged, so she should be in B. But Ghosh has damage reduction to 40%, which obviously does stack. The all attack and also blocks DOTs, which is good even in this meta and in the future, right? So it's going to be nice. Kahono, you could see some uses, but I would say she's like low A, very low A. She has the all attack, healing, barrier, increased defense, but she's a very plain unit. That's just it. Kyoto has his damage, which honestly does play very well into it, if we're being honest. Like, there's a lot of cases where he will be able to probably kill Asta just outright because of how much damage he can do, right? So that honestly is a pretty good thing. And Yami, his main use is the total silence, which obviously works the same as Yuno. But why it's worse is because he doesn't use the turn 1, but it still can be good while applying the SP -3. But his main thing is also the blocking HP recovery is nice, but it's removing barrier that keeps him in a solid A placement in my eyes, right? So this is A. I think it's like pretty decent. Nothing really to go crazy over, but you know, that's basically it. I'd say that the A units are like still decent, but I would say half of these aren't usable and half of them are like maybe usable. Now Rill, I'm pretty sure I did tell him to put Rill up, but if not, I would say Rill should deserve A. So we'll say Rill is an A, and yeah, he has his stun and is very good on the green team. Besides that, we're pretty much getting to like the end of this, so it's just gonna be, I'm gonna probably like timestamp this B and lower because I'm not talking about all of these units if we're being honest. I'm just gonna kind of single out some of them. Asta has his stun block, but now we have black Asta, so there's not really a big point to that. Leopold doesn't really do too much, and like it just isn't enough, right? He can't keep himself alive, and lifesteal just isn't good in this meta if you have nothing else. I wish someone like this had a lifesteal, or Magna would have been nice, but, you know, I mean, Leopold having it is not too crazy because his damage in the first place isn't great. Yami is just an unfortunate unit, having to kind of take multiple turns to get his own stunts, similar to Green Yami. And it's why these are more PvE units. What did I did say, yeah, S for PvE makes sense to me. But yeah, basically. Now for Green, I mean, Brill is pretty good. I wish Yuno was better, because I don't like what they did to him. If we look at it, right? They did it to that both of his passes are kind of useless. This one's not bad on Black Asta, because in total it's a 54% damage reduction, but that attack reduction, which is technically a 50% damage reduction in a way, because Asta only has attack, right? But besides that, having a chance once you get a crit, which is already a very low chance, to apply 10% incapacitate is kind of silly to me. But yeah, whatever about that. Raya also kind of fell off in terms of damage and everything. It's just, you might be able to get one kill, but after that, there's not really much you're doing. And Vetto, it's just not it. Then Nozel still has like decent debuffs, but it's just not enough, I would say. If we look at it, reducing magic attack and disarming at 107 speed isn't good. And then the two SSRs here, I'd say Vetto could go up to B. I would not say higher, because he has the same case as Black Asta, where playing solo is how you want to, but for Vetto, he has no one to enable him to do damage right away, because he needs everyone else dead. Like, he needs them dead. But in this case, it's in a much worse state than Black Asta, where he just doesn't offer much if no one else is dead. And when everyone else is dead, he could just be debuffed. And then Jack damage is pathetic. So, yeah. Won't really go into many of the SRs. I'd say Vanessa, honestly, has a decent chance of doing good. Where with Finral, she actually has, like, a pretty toxic thing. Where he applies 20% increased mobility, which is, what is it? Valtos' ult. Giving also DOT immunity. Plus, also, she gives damage resistance. So, you're going to be a bit tankier. And also just having the Valtos ult. But it takes 2 slots up. But you might be able to play a bit differently. So, I'm going to try testing it out. But she has a mini use, so I put her there. And then everyone below here just really isn't usable in PvP. Vetto is in B, though. I think he has, like, niche, very niche uses with Vanessa. Because obviously she gives 2-turn protection to Vetto, which means you have to attack everyone else. And by that point, everyone else is dead, and Vetto might be able to one-tap because he got buffed, which the buffs aren't here, but I'll probably tell Antelar about that. So that's it for the PvP side. Now let's go over to the PvE side after a quick break. Now then, let's talk about PvE. So if they have a little red skull, as we can see with Julius, then it's mainly just them being useful against bosses only. And if they don't have it, it could be that they're good against bosses, but it could also mean that they're good against just grinding alone, right? So without it, it could mean with bosses, but like with the skull thing, it's respectively with against bosses, where like, for example, Noelle could be good against bosses, but she's also pretty much one of the sole people to be used against grinding, right? So we're just going to go over this quite quickly. We already kind of have a better grasp of what they do. But just looking at it, Julius is like worth against bosses is just insane. Right, getting the stamina reduction, being able to reduce stamina more, doing insane damage, having a second life is insane. And Raya is going to be a timeless unit until they really power creep the amount of HP that bosses have and the amount of defense. Like, there's just nothing that's really going to stop Raya from being good at all. Like, at all. And Rodus is just good in PvE, like grinding, just being able to offer his barrier. And I'm pretty sure stun block does come in use sometimes, but not all the time. And then, I mean, you can move him down. It doesn't really matter. Then Fauna, still the best unit for grinding in the game. The amount of damage she does AoE is insane, and it just gets better over time as she gets more hatred stacks and lets her ult do more and more and more and more and more, right? So she's insane, right? Like, there's not really much else to say for that. Then Noelle, boss and grinding, amazing, right? Just not really much else to say. She gives the barriers, and all damage is still very good. So yeah. Then Asta, like, you could use him against just PvE, but like grinding. But there should be a skull on him. I don't know why there's not, but it doesn't really matter. I should have told him, if anything. Kind of my fault. But yeah, against bosses, you put him a Witch Queen. Even without, he plays as a very good support. Like, that's why I guess in grinding too, he works very well, because you just use him as a support. And then if everyone else dies, more so on the boss's side, then he goes crazy, one-taps, ults, and then they're dead, right? So that's basically it. Now, for S, we look at it. I mean, Red needs a bit more. Like, if we're really looking at it, that are, like, pretty good. But to be fair, like in PvP, they have a good bit, but just in PvE, it's kind of missing. Charlotte obviously having her defense reduction with the mark, which I'm not explaining again. I've already explained it like a million times, but just getting your extra turns. And then Yami with against bosses, against grinding, he has his AoE, which is pretty good. But also what's pretty cool is that like he has low speed, but now with max dupe, he gets guaranteed counterattack. And because of that, he's just going to be countering a bunch of times, basically allowing you to get like the turns finished much quicker. For like at the start of every wave, he gets a counterattack, which is super strong in PvE. Now for S on green, Charlotte is still really good, being able to kind of speed up the amount of ults that people get. Langris, very good AoE ult, and just being able to spam it quite a lot with dupes. Mimosa being able to res, extend buff turns, and then Nebra being amazing against bosses. Having her buff block 2 against certain bosses is very strong. And then also just reducing defense, and then applying Incapacitate for 2 turns, where Charlotte, it's only 1 turn, is one of her best points, right? Now, Yami, like, no matter what I say, Yami is still very good in PvE because he has his AoE that can be a stun if there's a bleed, which to make it work in PvE, it is pretty good. Now, besides that, for a, like, boss unit, he works extremely well using his skill 1 because he gets the speed increase, which allows him to spam much quicker, and also it gets stronger every time you use it. And you put that with the skill page, right? The skill page being this one, where at max dupe there's a 100% chance to get a 50% increased damage dealt buff. It makes it very strong. And then obviously same thing as Nebra, they do the same thing, but Nebra has buff block, which is why Nebra kind of takes the cake sometimes. But then also reduces stamina, so it depends on what you need, reducing stamina or buff blocking, and then you kind of decide from that which one is the better option for you, right? Now blue, pretty self-explanatory. Charmy heals. Fauna does pretty good AoE damage still. Gifso gives his buffs, right, which are very strong if we really look at it, because he gets multiple damage buffs, being all attack. Then he has his own special buff where he does extra damage to bosses, and then also just gets 25% increased damage in general. So 40% against bosses plus all attack is very good. Now Kyoto still does very good damage against bosses. I wouldn't say he's good for grinding, but for bosses' sake, insanely good. Lotus, good in any of those 2 cases. I mean, we had a team where we used Julius and Lotus, and that's all you needed to clear the raid boss. And main reason is that you have the Incapacitate, reduce speed, remove buffs, extend debuffs, reduce damage resistance, apply concentrated attack, reduce mobility. Every single one of those that I mentioned is a good debuff, and he does all of them, so it's insane. Now Mars still is able to tank, right? Being able to also taunt, right? Apply defense reduction, so he has that on his side. Giving the debuff block 2 turn 1 is an amazing thing to have against things like Guild Boss. And then Noelle obviously still very good because of the fact that she puts 30% incapacitate on the enemies for 1 turn. And also if like she's able to reduce the boss's damage too, which can be very useful in some cases, but she's more of a grinding unit if anything, but it does end up working out in a lot of cases to really help you guys out in PvE. Now, just scrolling down, I'd say it goes pretty quick at this point. You guys already heard what they say, and obviously this is more of a video that I think many of you guys care about for the PvE side more than the PvP side, right? So, Asta still has good damage because the main reason you're able to use him is because of Charlotte being able to give him extra turns, but it's more of a manual unit. You use the ult, you get it killed, then you get you get 2 extra turns with Charlotte. If you use Charlotte, then you just basically clear the whole team out. Charmy, very good boss and PV grinding unit, just being able to kind of like stay alive, heal herself, apply burns, and yeah, pretty decent. Verno, obviously being good for bosses and also just grinding, having the speed increase, damage increase, all of that stuff. Leo, just for grinding, and then Sally, just insane for bosses too, right? So pretty good stuff overall. Now for green units, it's kind of weak if we're really looking at it. I could definitely agree with you guys there. Where it's Fuego, Licked, and Rill. Rill, I mean, is the only one who's like decent here, but like Licked, he's still okay, not really that good. And then Fuego has his AoE and is still okay. But I guess for him, he does have Hall of Illusions floor 100 that helps him alongside Leopold, but yeah. Now for A, it's crazy, like Blue is a very strong contender still because A units are still very strong. Where William is more, I guess, of a boss unit, but not really like good either way. I wouldn't use him because getting the speed increase doesn't really help you out in many cases, right? Charlotte, good all attack, not really that crazy in like any bosses and stuff. Ghost can maybe go up, but I'd say like Gifso is just a better version of him for a lot of this stuff because he gives 40% damage increase plus all attack, where he gives all attack plus 30, like 20% if you're lucky, right? So yeah, like there's cases for both of them, but I'd say Gift's always a bit easier to use in some of them. Now Kohono is still decent for grinding because she gives all attack and heals, right? And then Luck has at least his AoE, and I mean because he has counters on a lot of them, if he gets attacked, he could kind of wipe out teams just like that. Now B, oof, it's just a mess. You know, I mean, yeah, no, honestly, I could honestly see why I put him in C before because it's just not worth it getting the silence and stuff in like PVE when that's his only use. But for all of these units, he could like reduce damage. He could do pretty decent stuff. We don't really need to talk about him. The only ones I really want to talk about, I guess, here are like Magna Fuego, Witch Queen, and then Gulduri. So Gulduri, I think, could go up to A. I wouldn't mind that, but it doesn't really change either way to me. Now Magna, it's just too much single target. That's all he does. It's not really worth it in many cases. Then Witch Queen, it's just like, it doesn't usually work out. Your heals aren't the best, and like the team that she would need to be run on doesn't really work well for PvE, obviously, so there's that. And then Fuego, like his main use is removing barriers, and there's no, like you're not really removing barriers and using Fuego, right? You're better off using like Magna or someone else. Now for bosses, Magna would be A, but I'd say that he's probably not as good as Charmy, just because Charmy has the pumpkin. Plus also she has immortality plus healing on herself, so Charmy's more self-sustaining for bosses, right? Then Gulduri I think is decent. If we look at it, right, he has just all attack increase plus protection here, then gives damage reduction and invulnerability, so it's nice. So overall, like I think this is like I'm pretty content with it, but the only ones that matter are really like S plus, S, and then a bit of A. But yeah, that's basically it. We kind of reached the 40-minute mark, so I think I'm good ending the video here. Hope you guys appreciated this video. Hope it helped you guys out, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.